We are live.
Yes, we are.
Cheers, Andy. You know, I really love our cups.
I know, aren't they great?
I want to show them off
Isn't
a little
that nice?
bit more.
Yeah, there we go.
Bam.
A wonderful chaos, and we like it that way. If you haven't heard our podcast,
we have a great tune.
We don't play it here because we have just a shortened version so we could get quick to the show. But the podcast song is brilliant.
Andy listens to it on his spare days.
Ronnie and I sing it to one another. Cass Midgley, who is our podcast editor, he created it for us. It's a wonderful song.
So today we have Professor Mel Rosenberg.
Yes,
we have a professor.
Yes, we got a professor.
How did you trick him?
Do you remember how every time we got anyone with like a degree, you'd always get a little bit uptight? Like, oh my God, Andy, we got to have a heady conversation.
Jesus fucking Christ.
Remember those days? Now you're actually into it. This is great. He's from Tel Aviv University. I met him through a mutual friend who everyone has heard his name because a lot of guests came through him so far as Gino Yu. And he's done some fascinating stuff, and he doesn't like to be pegged in any one direction. So when I say, how do I make you impressive on the show? He's like, I don't know, And I said, well, just give me a few like big ticket items. Like, tell me, what are the things that we would discuss? And he says, well, Andy, I did invent a mouthwash that was sold to Colgate.
Oh, really?
Yes. And so I thought that's kind of fascinating. And then I'm like, and he said, yeah, he's a mouthwash that was sold to Colgate, and
it was that good.
It was that good, and he basically he's worked with bacteria, so he's said he's dealt with at least 10,000 different people's breath to analyze it and sort of decide how do you address bad breath.
I just told Andy I made fennel tea for him.
Yeah, you did, and you said it was good for my breath. On top of that, unlike some of our guests who've done all these TED videos, he's done what are called the TED Ed videos, the ones with the animation, and he's done several of those, and those have been viewed over 7 million times. So his TED Ed videos, right, the ones with animated, he's been doing that.
I got that. And what's the third thing?
He's done a lot of other things, but he's written a dozen children's books, and so I'm sure we're going to discuss that. He loves the Beatles, as why we've chosen John Lennon today on our backdrop.
And what's the subject of our show?
You know what? It's I picked the most random subject: entrepreneurialism and music. I felt like I kind of shortcut this one, and I felt bad afterwards because I didn't talk to him. So I thought, let's just put two words together, because I was too busy, and I felt a bit bad, I have to say, before we came on.
I think you should feel bad. And Andy, we're going to do this on...
Jesus. Why do you do that? I always forget on A Wonderful Chaos. Yeah, so that's another screw up. Put that one in the books. So just for the record,
the idea is when we come on, Andy talks for like 60 seconds.
60 seconds.
And, I let him trail off a little bit, and then I have to say, we're going to do that on.
Because actually, we're supposed to say, we're on with Mel Rosenberg discussing music and entrepreneurialism, and then we go to our jingle. And unfortunately, I never quite do that right. Yeah, I'm just too excited,
So what you're telling me, we're going to have like a heady conversation?
No. Mel won't, we're going to enjoy our time with Mel. We're going to ask him probing questions. I see he's not scared of the F word, which is always good. And
he's not?
No, he's not scared of the F word. And
let's see if he knows how to say it in Greek then.
Yeah, exactly. That would be an interesting one as he's studying Greek.
Curious.
And he shakes his head.
He's nodding.
Yes, he does. And I would love to get a song out of him, because he revealed in the start that he's got a piano next to him, and he'd be willing to play a tune for us.
I was fascinated about his background because he has these little circles. It looks like that old game Connect 4.
Oh, in the back of him. Yeah. He was told me before we came on that his colleague who does video said, don't put a green screen behind you, put a background that makes it look like interesting and intriguing for others. So obviously it's worked if you're looking behind there and seeing his Connect.
I'm a photographer, and I look at everything.
Nice. So yeah, that's kind of it, Bambos. How was your day?
I I'm trying to get a friend for the last 2 months to come on our show, and he's not. He doesn't want to come. Like he's sick,
Yeah.
and he's been going through the medical channel to get healing.
Okay.
And he's said no to the medication.
Okay.
And even though he works in that world, he just sees how the system just wants to diagnose him and put him under medication, and
Okay.
he just says no to that.
Okay.
And when he says no, though, the consequences are they also don't treat him as a patient anymore. Like you've said no, so
now it's your life.
Yeah, it's your life. So they, for example, they don't diagnose him to see how far down he is or how.
Okay, got it. So then he basically is flying dark.
He's flying dark.
Yeah.
And the other reason he doesn't want to come on the show is because if he comes on the show, he has difficulty telling people he knows and trusts. So when he talks about it, he's worried that if people at his work or beyond start to know that he's sick, he's going to get a kind of label, and
Sure.
it might impact how his work.
Yeah.
So he's actually avoiding.
Yeah. So why would you want to get him on the show?
Well, I told him we don't have to have the camera on, but he has a very fascinating way in how he's choosing to live this, and it's so strong and inspiring, and I love him. And
oh, nice. Well, I would say until he's excited to be here, we don't want him.
Well, I would say, Andy, who the fuck has been excited to come on our show?
I know, but I don't want to convince people. I almost want to invite them, and if they're excited after they've been invited, great. But if I have to convince somebody, no way, Could you imagine one of the sex abuse survivors, like convincing them to be on the show? That would be the worst.
Oh, God.
You've just survived sexual abuse, but come on a show with two men. We're going to ask you questions.
Just to give reference, we've had two women who have
had
sexually
abuse.
Abused the last
one of them, and the other one, yeah. So, yeah, I would say let's park that one. We can discuss it after the show.
Yeah.
But before we go any further, I think it's really great to invite our guest, the professor, Mel Rosenberg.
The one.
The only. Can you play an intro for us? Actually, what I'd like to hear, if you may, I want to sing along to the intro to your show, which is called You Got Mel.
I don't do that. That's the one that I don't do.
Is that right?
Yeah. What would you like on an old classic? Pick a song.
I would love to hear something from the Beatles, and if I could hear it, I'd want your favorite Beatles song, not just anyone, your favorite Beatles song.
Okay. That would be this. Here, making each day of the year, changing my life with a wave of her hand. Nobody can deny that there's something there. Running my hands through her hair, each one believing how sweet it can be. Somebody's speaking, but she doesn't know he's there. I want her everywhere, and if she's beside me, I know I need never care. For to love her is to need her everywhere, knowing that love is to share. Each one believing that love never dies, watching her eyes and hoping I'm always there, to be there and everywhere, here, there, and everywhere. Oh.
That's beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bravo.
Thank you. Faristopoli.
Baragalon.
That's beautiful. The first person that could speak really with Bombo since the show began. We've never had a Cypriot on the show.
We're getting one in January.
Oh, nice.
14th.
I'm almost a Cypriot.
Where?
Because I live in Israel, I can practically swim to Lefkosia.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. So, Mel.
Some raki.
I photograph a lot of bar mitzvahs and bar mitzvahs in the Netherlands. And the tendency is people start speaking Hebrew to me, and I just nod.
Does he look like someone?
It's always a good approach. Somebody says something you don't understand, just say,
yeah. Or if you're in India, you move your head like that.
or
That's
just
such a
say,
stereotype.
No, it's not a stereotype. That's true.
just say malacas.
Malacca, I know that
Malacas
from
is a
Greek.
great word. Yeah, well,
Malacca. I use that. That's probably the only word I ever remembered from Greece.
Asshole.
Is that really what it means?
Yeah.
I think I was calling everybody that. I didn't even know what I was saying all that time.
Yeah, but you say to your friends like, "Lare Malaga and taxi."
Malacca is a jerk off in Greek.
Is that right?
Yeah, it's not something you say to your professor.
No.
Malaga.
I know you don't want to talk about this, and I'm sorry to ask, but I need to ask. It's just too random. How the hell does somebody create a mouthwash? Like this, how does that happen?
In 2 words, by accident, we wanted to create a toothpaste, but there was a toothpaste with a similar technology. So we said, oh, well, we'll create a mouthwash. I mean,
okay.
The story is so bizarre. You really want me to tell you in brief?
Tell me in brief, because I just think, like, in a life, remember, your life, you think it's boring because you did it. But on the other end, there's just people in life that thinks, who randomly creates, and how would you ever come to create a mouthwash that Colgate would purchase?
Okay, so I did my PhD on oil contamination.
Okay.
And learned how bacteria stick to oil droplets.
Wow.
With my mentor, Eugene Rosenberg and David Gutnick. And I had a friend named Erwin Weiss who was at the dental school. So we started to play around with dental bacteria that love sticking to things. And we discovered that they stick to oil droplets. Wow. And that was the beginning of the mouthwash. It took Colgate only 30 or 35 years to actually start using the technology.
Fascinating.
So one of my mentors, Yossi Vardi, said that I have to call my talk how I became an overnight celebrity, and it only took 35 years.
And did you, like, just horrible curiosity, were you like in situations where you were like smelling people's breath to test it to see if this stuff worked? I mean, how did you test to see if your mouthwash was working?
Well, this was the problem. This is what the pharmaceutical house said. How do you know it works? And we didn't know anything about bad breath. So we started to invent our own ways to check it, which included the ancient way of sticking your nose in somebody's mouth and just smelling. But we also developed the methodologies. We took a sulfur instrument.
I can't believe we're having this conversation.
And nor I. It's like
I'm sorry. I'm fascinated as hell by this.
Like, okay. So,
I'd love to hear. I'd love to hear about when you were singing that song. It felt that you were singing it to someone.
Oh my goodness!
Like that's not just a song.
I'm going to disappoint you. I think that the stuff we do for ourselves usually.
You're saying
so, that's a song I sing to myself. I mean, I have a wife and I love her dearly.
You lost any brownie points you might get when you go home tonight.
I have bad news for you. I am at home.
You're what?
Maybe it's bad news for me.
He says he's at home. That's the bad news.
Spiti mo.
Yeah.
So
is there?
So people started calling us at the university. I have a problem with my breath. I have a problem, and then we needed to do research. So we co-opted 75 people, and we smelled them, and we used this sulfur machine, and that's how we got started on this roller coaster.
Okay, I'm giving up on the subject because I can see it's irritating Bambos, and you didn't want to go there anyway, so I'm passing on it. I love that. Thank you for taking the time.
This is your program,
Super provocative.
You know what? I have faith in Bambos's judgment, and when Bambos says Andy, move on, I'm trusting him. I'm moving on.
Thank you.
No, the mouthwash became most famous in England.
That's it. Thank you.
You did not just do that.
I love you. Thank you for doing that. Let me see it.
Is it organic? Is it natural coloring?
It has water and oil. It was organic at the beginning, but companies have a way of making it non-organic, and you shake it to use. So the oil mixes with the water, and you shake with the emulsion, and then when you spit it out, you can see the bacteria on the oil droplets, so you can actually see how it works in your own sink.
Wow.
And do you use it yourself?
Before social engagements.
Nice.
We're not going to go into my own personal relationship with
What'd you say?
But no, it reduces bad breath, right? So
Sure.
whenever, yeah.
So whenever you go to bed and you feel a bit frisky, you say, "Hey, I'm going to do a bit of mouthwash now."
So
Yeah,
Andy was on your show, and you guys met through Gino.
Yeah.
that's right.
Why did you invite Andy on your show?
Oh, well, he sounded really interesting, and he had a story, and it was the early
Was it
days.
for the Wounded Healer or the Last Letter?
No,
I would invite anybody on the show, but
you could go on this show.
but if Gene, I'm booking for 2023 now. But if Gino tells me this guy Andy is really amazing, if Andy tells me that Peter is amazing, I'll have him on the show too.
Yeah,
Peter Koenig's amazing.
Yep. We've got some amazing characters in our arsenal after all these shows we've done.
Roster, yeah.
Yes, we've even got reoccurring ones. Yeah.
Jeff?
Oh, we got like Chris Carell is somebody. He's written a few books, and he did a big TED talk that he's known for. It's always fun to have that person on.
If I play my cards right, I might be back in 3 years.
No, we'll figure out like another reason to discuss mouthwash for sure.
No, we won't.
I'd like to ask random questions, Bambos, and I'd like you to come up with the first one. What's your first random question for Mel?
How's your sex life?
Good.
Good.
For my age,
How old are you?
68, almost 69.
Bam, boy.
Doing well.
Yeah. So I mean, I think the question is, do you have a sex life?
Yeah, no, you don't want to ask that though. That's too offensive.
Do you have a sex life? I didn't think about it.
I'm not going to answer that question, but
no, good.
look at my smile.
So you're married for how many years now?
I'm not allowed to say that.
No, you're not allowed to say that.
No, there's very few things my wife does not allow me to say on camera. That is one of them. But we're married a lot of years.
Oh wow, beautiful. I love that.
Nice.
Hmm.
Is she watching?
I hope not.
She's got better things going on in her life, Bambos. Okay, you ready for me to go for it?
You go one, I'll go one.
If you guys don't start, I'm going to start asking myself questions.
No. We never do it this way. That's why we're changing the format for this show. So we're playing with something we've never done before, which is this is the way normal people might do a show. We don't do that usually. I'm curious about music, like what I can see in your life and all your shows, and even having your own jingle, singing it before each of your own podcast. Like, how did music come into your life, and what role does it play then and now? Because it seems like it's evolved since you were young.
Music has played a major role in my life. I started learning piano at the age of 8.
Mm-hmm.
I studied classical music for about 6 or 7 years. And then I gave my teacher, Sandra Kupal, an ultimatum. Either you teach me Beatles or I quit.
Really? Mm-hmm. What year, am I allowed to ask that? What year was it that happened? Because was it when the Beatles were still together, I'm assuming?
Yeah, I don't know, 64 or 65.
Okay.
Early days of the Beatles.
Early days of the Beatles.
And then when I was almost 18, I came to Israel. I really had not heard much jazz, but when I started listening, I fell in love with that genre. And since then, I've pursuit of becoming a jazz piano player, singer, saxophonist. Never became internationally good, but I appeared at a few festivals in Israel, and I released 2 albums. That's a good word. Released 2 albums, and
Nice.
and I had a lovely career. I played some weddings. I played abroad, and I played in Japan, in Brazil, in South Africa, in Cyprus. So it was a great spice to my life.
I love that. I'd love to share a side story if I may.
Of course, it's your show.
I've played the saxophone since I was in college, and I went to Japan and I played the saxophone in Japan and practiced a lot. And a friend of mine was getting married, and he said, "Andy, will you do me a favor and play at my wedding?" And I said, "Man, I'm really not that good." Like, no. He says, "No, Andy, I want you." Like, he insisted. So, and I'm like, "Dude, I don't." And it was like one of these Japanese weddings, very big hall, no personal space. It was in a rural village. So then I play my version of my favorite things, right? Just da 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 da, and so on. And it wasn't good at all. It's just the best on the saxophone. One of the first things I learned. And so afterwards,
Coltrane.
Yeah, Coltrane's version, that blew my mind. So he comes up to me afterwards, says, "Andy, I probably shouldn't have asked you to play at the wedding."
Was he Japanese?
No, he was British. And then he got married, brought that woman back to the UK. She then had an affair with an Italian guy, and then she upgraded and then left that marriage and left a child behind. All that messy thing. But yeah, that was so my music never quite crossed to album. Let's put it that way. Yeah. Fun.
But brave that you did that.
Brave, and the last time I actually played in public, or maybe I did one more public showing, but I played with a virtual pianist. What I've learned about music is that if you play with a very good person...
Andy, can I just give you a lesson in elocution?
Yes. Album?
No, I played with a virtual pianist.
What did I say?
Whatever.
A virtuoso?
You said, no, I played with a virtual pianist. People might get the wrong idea.
I love it. I didn't hear that. Well, I sometimes play with virtual pianists as well, but in this case, it was a pianist. And she, when you play with someone really good, they can make your screw up sound purposeful to the point that it's even better.
Wow.
Isn't that amazing?
It's just like innovation.
It's just like innovation.
I mean, like the whole idea of the mouthwash was a series of happenstances, picking the only particular color off the shelf, doing the wrong experiment, seeing a different result in one test tube out of 30. And this is how most inventions happen, actually.
Yeah, but you were intending to create this. It wasn't just an accident. There was intention.
Yeah, there was intention. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, we get some brownie points for that.
Yeah, it wasn't like just like a random act of, oh, look at this works. Why don't we make a mouthwash? I got more questions, Bambos, but I'm going to pause a little bit to see if you can find something that brings you back to your joy.
Or I can continue the story of the music meanwhile, while you guys are trying to figure out what to ask me.
No, I'm Bambos and I have a thing. Like I'll rant on the whole time and ask a lot of questions unless I give Bambos space. But Bambos needs more space than I do to ask questions.
But when I want to ask a question, I tend to tap him.
He taps me on the leg when he wants to ask me a question.
And then he knows.
That's already too much information for me.
It has nothing to do with my penis, by the way.
More information that I don't need.
But many people would think that because they wonder about Bambos and my relationship, of course.
That's why I interview people myself, by the way.
By yourself.
Yeah, he's on a show alone. So take me from this moment. You were raised. You're born in Canada. You moved to Tel Aviv. As is it sort of like, because obviously you're a Jew, I'm assuming, because that's what Jews do. They go back to the motherland. And the question is, was it something that you were compelled to do, or was it the family moved and took you there? So what was the reason for that transition in your life?
Okay, so I grew up in a Zionist household. My parents considered going to Israel. We call it making aliyah, when they were around 20. And then they decided to stay in Canada and have me. And then they had 3 other kids. And they stayed in Canada for many years. But in our house, there was always, Israel was like the second word, in every sentence. And I belonged to a Jewish youth movement called Habonim, which believed in going back to Israel after 2,000 years. So I went on a 1-year program to a kibbutz. I wasn't even 18 years old, but the first day I was there, I said, wow, this is the first time in my life that I can really be me. I don't have to go to synagogue. I don't have to wonder whether the person I'm talking to is an anti-Semite. Wow. And that 1 year turned into 50 years like that.
Wow.
You didn't go back after that?
Just to visit. I was on sabbatical at the University of Toronto 1 year. But I'm addicted to this crazy country.
That's beautiful. You get emotional even when you talk about this.
It's possible because, a lot of people go through life and they don't make the conscious choices that we did to get up and go live somewhere that's 6,000 miles away from home, and learn a new language and a new culture. And I think it's been very good for my life. I mean, there's no way of comparing had I stayed in Canada, but I'm a happy camper.
Yeah. It's interesting because I think when I was on your show, I told you my dad was Jewish and my mom was Catholic. And mom was really, after my parents got divorced when I was 10, my mom got the marriage annulled so that she could become a nun. She wanted to go into the nunhood. And my dad hated all of the values that the church was putting in us. So it really caused friction in our lives because he would blame me for anything he saw coming from the church. Like it was like his divide in who we are. But the curiosity was, I was always closer to the Jewish side of the family than the Catholic side of the family, because there was a way that they resonated more with my way of being in the world. There was a directness that I experienced on the Jewish side that I didn't have. Like I could say whatever I wanted to say on the Jewish side. They'd argue, but you'd love each other afterwards. And then on the Catholic side, there'd be resentment that would be quiet like a cancer forever. And I just
like the silence treatment.
Yeah, the silent treatment. And so just by my nature,
Jews don't know silent treatments.
What do you say?
Jews are noisy. They don't like silent treatments.
Exactly. So I would go into this this sort of more of the Jewish family, and my friends would often be Jewish. Even when I lived in Vienna for 10 years, I was hanging out with the Jewish, and there's not many of them there, right? So when I'm in Vienna, the friends are Jewish, and I noticed that there's more of a matter-of-factness, more of a sarcasm, like a strong comfort with the just not taking it so seriously, guys.
There's also a belonging here.
Yeah, there was a bit of belonging as well. But yeah, I always found it interesting. And then what the beauty is that my brother, we were all raised Catholic, but my middle brother had a daughter, and she became kind of a gender neutral, didn't quite designate am I male or female, and went through that phase. And then she decided to convert to Judaism.
Huh.
So then she converts to Judaism. She goes to Brown University, and she then studies to become a rabbi.
Come on.
No. You can't make this stuff up. But yes.
Your niece is a rabbi?
Well, she studied too, and I believe she then dropped out because she was of all the things. Imagine this: she was gender non-identified, right? Or I don't know how we describe it because it's so complicated nowadays. But at the same time, she wanted to be a Hasidic Jew.
What's that?
The most stringent of.
There's nothing wrong with that in my eyes.
Yeah, but she was running into every confrontation of this very conservative Orthodox Jewish, and she's now a female by birth, but she identifies as a male. That kind of crazy.
We might refer as a they.
It's a they, but now she went from she to they, and so she went into different pronoun usages. Yeah. But isn't that fascinating?
It's incredible.
Yeah.
I think that there's nothing more interesting than human beings, which is part of the reason I love doing my show. Because even when you're interviewing somebody you think you know, sometimes really odd things come out.
So give me an example of one of the shows you did where you were really surprised in a show.
Oh, it happens all the time.
Okay. But is there one that stands out?
Maybe like during the rest of the conversation, I'll come up with something.
Okay, good. Yeah. I'm trying to think if I think about one time when I was really surprised on a show, like it caught me totally off guard. Nothing that comes up for me either at the moment.
We've had some pretty intense shows.
I mean, we've had intense shows, but we knew they were going to be intense before they started. I'm curious about these TED videos the TED Ed videos. Your TED Ed videos have been watched over 7 million times. That's a lot. And how did you come about doing these videos? Were you asked to create an animation, or how did that work?
I was recommended, but the truth is that anybody can pitch TED with an idea for a TED Ed. Okay. I don't know what the rejection rate is, but the first one I did was on bad breath, and who better than me to write that? So they got all excited, and furry. So that was my first one, and I think my second one was on dental caries. Which they didn't have anything on, and it's such an important topic. And I think that my third one was on body odor, which is very intriguing. And all of these things, of course, are caused by bacteria.
So bad right now, Bambas. Have a smell.
No.
I'm so bad right now. Can you help me with one thing? Because it's of no interest to you, I know, nor Bambos. As I've gotten older, I smell more. I'm sure of it. And Ronnie tries to tell me, she doesn't notice a big difference, but I notice a tremendous difference.
Well, I have good news for you. I have good news for you, because it goes up with age. But then when you stop being sexually active, it disappears. So you have at least something to look forward to.
Or he stays sexually active, but as he goes older, he can't.
I'm talking about body odor from your armpits.
I'm talking about armpits as well.
Yeah, because bad breath can get worse with age. Sure.
Okay. Yeah, and then, I'm talking about my armpits right now, and I'd like to add to this. This is more of a.
We're going to change the subject of this show.
I'm sorry, but I'm just curious. This curiosity guides me.
I got you.
I after I orgasm, I have the worst odor. Like it is so, and it wasn't like that when I was 30 or 40. So like now that I'm 50, when I orgasm, like there's an odor that comes out underneath my arms, which is so, for me, rancid. Ronnie says, no, it's just that odor. So,
and I think the problem is not what the odor is, but why do you bother to smell it?
Because it can't avoid it. It's like a plume.
You remind me now of a fish named Wanda.
How's that?
Where she smells the boots and stuff to get off.
I have one word for you.
I've never been interviewed by anybody who the first thing they want to do after coitus, I'm assuming it's coitus here, is
it's coitus.
Smell their own axillary odor.
I don't have the chance. That's what I'm trying to tell you. It just
Andy.
What?
Why don't you try wearing deodorant or you know.
It's beyond deodorant. Okay, Bambos wants to take us back. I'm sorry.
Save your armpits. I mean, there's
I'm
many
telling him
things.
to start taking ice baths and to stop ejaculating, like practice tantra, breath work.
Have you heard the
It's
spiritual
not
man?
nothing to do with spiritual. It's a science.
Have you got any of this, Mel? Have you been following this phase in male evolution of non-orgasm? Have you followed that at all?
You get other orgasm.
I never got off on it. Can we change the subject?
I like that he gets the skip button.
Are we touching a soft
No,
spot?
we get to skip the next button. Children's books. You've written 12 of them. How does that come into your life? How does that come into your life?
Well, I think that we all are children, but each of us gets arrested at a certain stage.
Me too, yeah.
Like some of us are 5-year-olds at heart, some are 3, some are 7 or 8, some are 11, but there's always some scratch in the record. If our lives are a record that plays once, to quote my friend Ralph Martinez, we have an early scratch. Yeah. And we keep going back to this early scratch. So my early scratch was when I was 5.
Oh, wow.
And when I was before the age of 5, my dad used to read me children's stories. I was a glutton. It was the best moment of my early life. Especially Madeline by Bemelmans and Peter Pan, and I had all these stories that I loved. And then things turned sour for me at 5. So I'm stuck there. And the first children's story I wrote was called The Bacteria Galore by Sunday at 4. When a kid asked me what I do, and I told him that I grow bacteria, and he said, "What are bacteria?" And I said, "When I get back to Tel Aviv, I'll write you a book," which I did. But by the time I wrote it, I couldn't find the kid. So when my own child was 5, I read it in his kindergarten. And the kindergarten teacher said, "Mel, if you can put it into rhyme in Hebrew, it'll be a really good book." And I did. And it was published by Tel Aviv University. And it went through 3 printings. We made it in Arabic. I'm now trying to get it published in English in the States. And that was my first children's book, Bacteria Galore by Sunday at 4.
Wow.
And since then, I've written to placate my 5-year-old. And, we share ideas for books. And he's sometimes critical, sometimes not. And I've written many books. And 7 years ago, I actually spent a lot of mouthwash money making my books come true. We have a platform called Our Books, OURBOOX, where anybody in the world can publish books. And I published many of my children's stories there. Wow. The latest one is Nick's new job, which is very, very timely because I just got fired.
Did you get fired?
I was fired by Shankar College after 5 years.
Wow. I thought you were generous in your post by saying, "I moved on."
Yes, I try to be because, what's the point? But
Agreed.
The truth is that they let me go.
They let you go, yeah. That's the story.
Because of COVID.
You're being generous. Because I'm a round peg in a square hole.
Oh, yeah.
Because most colleges and universities are very political spaces. They don't like people who tell them actually how mediocre they are.
Yep.
I think that was what undid me.
Yeah.
Many colleges and universities excel in mediocrity. They have this. This is what they really excel at. And when you want to make a place really great and fulfill its potential, instead of saying, "Oh, how do we do that?" they say, "Thanks for coming."
Yeah, not possible. Yeah. Isn't it interesting how, and you see it, like exceptionalism rises outside of the container of mediocrity all the time. And it's always interesting because the exceptional are often viewed as the problem, where and especially when the exceptionalism stays in that confine, then it's the worst life. Like when I go to do work in a business and I see an exceptional person that's accepted mediocrity, like their lives are over. They're like the dread on their face.
What people don't realize is, excuse me for butting in, but it's my.
Yeah, I love it.
So basically, you're right. What people don't understand is that universities and colleges are companies.
Yep.
They're producing the same product for 1,000 years. They resist any change. So now in the Zoom era, rather than say, how are we going to make online teaching better than frontal teaching, they're in a state of disarray. How are we going to give exams? Students are going to cheat on exams. Oy vey, everybody. Well, here's the thing. Students cheat on exams anyway. It's easier to catch them online. So in the course I gave last semester, maybe this is a good reason for firing me in itself. Rather than give the students marks at the end of the course, I gave the marks at the beginning of the course. How did that work? I said, you guys are all worried about marks. Why don't you just give yourself marks now? Send me an email. Tell me what mark you want. 94, 96, 98. And they all wrote to me. And then I sent them an email. That's great. You will get in the course exactly what you asked for. You just have to be worthy of it. That's all. And you know what, guys? They were.
Yeah.
Out of 25 students, almost all of them got the mark that they asked for. A few got higher marks because they changed their mind during the course. They say, hey, I'm doing a lot of work. Give me a 95. I said, okay.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
That's beautiful. Yeah.
Reverse engineering.
Yeah. I see so much that we don't call into question the basis under which we've developed our system, because everyone makes the assumption it was always the right thing to do, never thinking what's the cost of doing it that way.
Yeah, but I was always like my brother-in-law. We were once walking from the sea, and he says, you're an anti-academic. And I said, yeah. This is a guy I've known for like 35 years. He said, no, you don't understand. You are an anti-academic. I said, yeah. He said, no. You're an anti-academic who's also an academic.
Yeah.
And I said, yeah. He says, okay, now I get why they keep firing you.
Yes. You can't be a radical. You can't be a radical.
They're going to fire you.
Yeah. You can't be a radical in the system.
I had a great career at Tel Aviv University, but they made it very easy for me to take an early retirement. And the crazy thing, and this is really what I wanted to talk about, is that how a professor of microbiology is now giving 2 courses on popular music, academic courses, at Tel Aviv University. That's interesting.
Yeah. But we're not going to talk about that.
No, because it's interesting.
Of course we're going to talk about that. Tell me, how does that transition occur? Because what I've known about universities is that you specialize in an area that you can get money for, right? Because it's always about the money you can raise in research. That's just, you make your salary, basically. They don't pay you. You make your own way, and then they give you facilities. So how do you go from building up your street credibility in the area that you have bacteria and then saying, hey, I'm going to go to this other area, which clearly the people from outwardly wouldn't necessarily value it as they would someone who understands bacteria when they graduate?
First of all, you have to leave and then come back. But basically, as a microbiologist at a public university, my salary was disengaged from the grants. So if I got a grant, I would get a bigger salary.
Of course, yeah.
But the moment I started inventing things, and I had a few inventions, I got a part of what the university made from the inventions. And that had no limit. It was like a quarter of what the university got. What they made, the inventors got a quarter, or I got a quarter. And that turned out to be pretty good money. So it invoked a lot of, I guess, resentment from my peers, and And by the age of 58, I'd had enough. I went to see the rector crying. I said, please let me out of here. And he said, okay, where do I sign? And he also said, Mel, you've been a great teacher and a great researcher, and it's been great having you for 35 years. Bye-bye. And then I was out. So I went to another college, and I wanted to have a rock and roll band at the college. So I said, okay, how do I can't pay the students for performing. I'll set up a course, and the course will be a bullshit course about music of the 60s.
Nice.
I won't teach fuck. And nice. I'll have a band, and maybe like 10 kids will sign up. But, the way things happen in life, I had 120 students, and I had to turn it into a real course.
I love it.
So the 60s became a real course. And then one day I got a call from Tel Aviv University. We want you to teach something about science in this crossover program. And I said, well, I don't want to teach science anymore. I have a course in popular music in this other college. And I said, oh, yeah. I heard of that course. But then you would be a scientist teaching an arts course to science students. I said, yeah, this will never happen, right? He said, well, let me give it a shot. And Dina, who was the vice president and head of this program, she loved the idea because she's a weirdo. She's a professor of physics. Professors of physics are weirdos, but she's a weirdo in the best way. Thank you, Dina. She says, yeah, I like the idea of a professor of microbiology giving a course in 60s music to science students.
I love it.
But then the art students wanted to come too. So in 2 weeks, on October the 18th, I begin a Zoom class with 250 students. Wow. On the spectacular music of the 60s. No, wrong course. I have 2 courses. First semester, the course is on popular music from 1927 to 1980. Shit, I got my courses mixed up.
You know what I love is the mix of the students going into that class. The fact that there's art students and the science students, like they never mix like that. That's like oil and water already,
So you actually are my dental wash.
What do you mean?
What do you mean?
The students. Your class, it's like a dental wash.
Oh yeah, but my whole life is like a dental wash. You see, because other people talk about thinking outside the box, but when I teach creative skills to my students, thinking no inventor thinks outside the box. There's nothing outside the box. There's like, void, space, outer space, black. That's where the outside the box is. What inventors really do is they think between boxes.
Mm-hmm.
And if you Google thinking between boxes, you'll find my books because I'm the only one writing about it. But I'm not the only one who thought about it because Einstein about similar things, that invention is about combining ideas or fields in an unanticipated manner. So, I should call my book Oil and Water because essentially this is what I do. I never thought about it until today. Thank you, guys. So, people would say oil and water don't mix, right? Well, you create a mouthwash where they do. And that's the essence of creativity and innovation, is taking things that don't appear to be connected and finding a weird association between them.
And I think we had Bob Deutsch was the guest we had on last week. It was all about leadership and creativity. He's interviewed a lot of people like Bruce Springsteen, and he had contact studying Bowie and a lot of these big names. And what he would always say is that at some point you understand paradox, that you will hold 2 opposing positions simultaneously comfortably. And when you've kind of understood paradox, you have the capacity to be creative, because until you're fighting one or the other, then you're always in this sort of pendulum of sort of one space or another, instead of just the being space of trying to hold the complexity of life. And life is complex.
Yeah. Like, I mean, this is a great conversation. Like, I thought about this. There's this word dichotomy, right?
Yeah.
Dichotomy is either something is or it isn't.
Isn't, yeah.
Right? So either it's dichotomous or it isn't dichotomous. But most things are sort of dichotomous. They're not really dichotomous to start out. You could say, there is a God or there isn't a God. But, for me, sometimes there is a God. In other words, maybe there's a God on Mondays and Tuesdays or for Jews, Sabbath, right?
Yeah.
The rest of the week there isn't a God, and then he comes back.
There's not God around. That God isn't around for the Jews very much. I can tell you that. He's really let you guys suffer a long time.
You mean us guys, Andy?
You know what? It would be us guys, except for Mom was Catholic. That's the funny thing about Judaism is that really that harsh line that if your mom's a Jew, you're a Jew. But if it was only Dad, the lineage stops there. Why is that, by the way?
Well, that's because in Judaism, the mother has a very important role in raising the child. So, raising, breastfeeding, inculcating. Is there a word like that?
Yeah.
Okay.
You say yes.
And in Islam, it's the opposite. There is the religion decider. So there's people in this country who are Muslim and Jewish, because if they have a Muslim dad and a Jewish wife, a Jewish mother, then they're both Muslim and they're both Jewish.
That's fascinating. My wife is Indonesian, so she was born. She says she's culturally Muslim. So, when we go to Indonesia, they're always trying to convert me to Judaism, to become a Muslim. To be Muslim. And there's always this funny thing because part of the family won't accept me fully. Like they can't walk in the front door because I'm not. I haven't accepted Allah. Yeah,
you're an infidel.
I'm an infidel. Yeah,
you're an infidel, Andy.
Yeah,
and it's fucking great.
I can live that way. So I do love. I love the story of you finding music and making it work for you in a construct of a university which isn't necessarily capable to allow that. And what I'm curious now is you're kind of given your dream. Like, I want to do this. Now you have 250 people signed up for it. Like, on one level, you got to say, great. But on another level, you got to say, oh, shit, what am I going to do now? Is that true or not?
No, not for me.
Okay.
The way I look at life, and this is maybe a biochemical thing, an ADHD thing. It's not something I recommend to other people. But for me, my life is like a buffet with all kinds of dishes, and they're all scrumptious. The only problem is you cannot come back for a second helping. That's life, right? So, some people go through life and they go straight to the barbecue. Some people go straight to the dessert. I can't fucking decide. I want everything. I want the antipasta, and then I want a little bit of this, and then I want some fish. And so, because there is something crazy. If somebody from the age of 8 wants to be an agronomist, right? So from the age of 8, I wanted to be an agronomist, and I became an agronomist. I'm a very happy agronomist. Well, I say, okay, good for you, but you never were anything else. So you don't really know, right? If you'd be happier being a librarian or an astronaut or a rabbi. So I've been lucky in my life that I've had like 40 different jobs, and you learn from each of them. And yes, sometimes you get fired, and sometimes you get kicked in the balls, as I just did. You get up, and you can't go back to having the rib steak, but there's something along the way that you can choose. Nice. And in my life, at least up until now, there's always been something. There's always been another dish along the one-way buffet.
Yeah.
So my dishes now are primarily music and children book writing and my website for writing books. And I want to make a living teaching people how to come across as more human beings, over Zoom and StreamYard and all of these things, including lecturers who sometimes forget that they're also human beings. And if you lecture to students, it doesn't matter what you're talking about, but if the students sense humanity in your presentation and some unexpected jokes and some interaction with the students who also happen to be human beings, you have a chance that they might learn something, that you might engage them. So this is what I want to do for a living. I want to teach people how to be human beings again, even digitally. But
don't forget your podcast, by the way. You're also doing podcasts.
Yeah, but that's part of the same thing. I'm trying to there's not the real reason for the podcast is what we call in Hebrew a tikkun. How do you say tikkun in English? Fixing your life. I'm a university professor. I love to talk and tell stories and to write and play music. And I have no trouble coming on your program and talking nonstop for 2 hours. But in my show, I talk less than 20% of the time. So this is my tikkun. I have a sign that says, talk less, shut up more.
Nice.
Shouldn't it be listen more?
Yeah.
That was nice.
I'm still not there yet, am I?
Apparently not. I've just been enjoying you. Like you have so much sweetness in your eyes, and I can feel your heart when you're talking, and it's just really beautiful being with you. Like, and I can see that you are an amazing teacher, because there comes out the storyteller in you. Like I can imagine you with your children, with your kids. I don't know how old they are. They're teens, 17 or something, right? 18. How old are they?
Agapo. My daughter is 30 something.
No, I mean your students.
30 something, no?
Your students.
I thought you meant my kids.
No, your students when you're teaching.
They're in their early 20s, yeah.
Yeah. So I feel that storytelling energy is like even when you're talking something serious, that the transmission is very like singing almost. So you're an artist who teaches academic, and somehow that creative energy penetrates and touches these kids. I love it.
Bless you for saying that.
Yeah, I wish you were my teacher. I hated school.
I'll teach you anytime. I'm serious. I like, I'm sitting here doing all kinds of ridiculous things, trying to find a publisher for my children's books, and trying to share things. So if there's anything I can teach you, I'm serious. Except microbiology. I don't want microbiology. I don't want to teach you to smell Andy's armpits.
No. I already told him he's going to do ice baths and tantra from now on. He's going to become a tantric master.
Okay.
I had other questions that I also want to go back to, and they had nothing to do with bacteria. And we're going to go a little bit over on this talk if you have time.
Do you have time?
I can
saw
check.
I'm looking and
have him look, and
just let me have a look for a second.
Or is your wife gonna be calling you?
Screen. I'm okay.
Okay, good. I've been with my wife who loves children's books, and she likes writing children's books.
Really?
Yeah. And the thing that I found really interesting and like hard for me is you talk about the skipped record, and my skip record feels like it's 16, 17. And when you say you go back to your skip record at, say, 5, it's like, oh, that part of my brain the making up childlike names, wondrous locations, fanciful wording that sort of it's so beyond the adult that if the adult looks at it, he thinks it's stupid because he judges from the idea of it's not rational, it's not clear enough, it's not strong enough, whatever it does. So I think it's fascinating because when you're channeling the 5-year-old, what does it feel like in your mind when you allow that space to speak?
It's so wonderful. Like when I get an idea, I'm almost going to cry now. When I get an idea for a good story, I want to laugh and cry. This is so Nick's new job, which is very germane to our discussion, is about a guy who gets fired.
Can you do me a favor?
Yeah.
Open one page and just read one.
Okay, I want to shout out to Irena Brodetsky, who did the illustrations for free.
Wonderful.
Okay. So Nick arrived home with the widest smile you've ever seen. I got the job at the Holy Molar Company, he proclaimed to his wife. I'm going to be in charge of filling all the toothpaste tubes.
Nice.
So, when I get an idea like that, it's like, writing for me is like scratching and itching, something itches and you scratch. And then I wrote it and the ending sucked. And sat for a year. And that's also an itchy, scratchy thing. Because, sometimes you write a novel or a story and it has to have a really good ending, a twisty, meaningful ending, right? And for a year, the ending sucked. And then I had this idea that essentially he was sad. Actually, the reason he gets fired from the toothpaste company before he starts is because he buys crates and crates of toothpaste to practice, filling the empty jars. And so the company runs out of products because they've been selling it all to him. And he goes home and he's morose. But he comes back the next week with a wider smile. He says, you're not going to guess the new job I got. And she says, I think I will. You're going to be in charge of, he says, I got a job at a pillow company. And she says, you're going to have a job filling all the pillows with feathers. He says, how did you know? She says, woman's intuition, I know, but please stop practicing in the house.
Beautiful. There was a second item that I
actually missed why you talked about running. What was the connection?
The connection was because when you talked about channeling the 5-year-old, I don't have the capacity in myself to do that. I don't have the wondrous 5-year-old who makes up quirky names that feels like that isn't in my skipped record. I don't go regress to that person and say, oh, these are the funny, whimsical wordings that make a child sit and wonder. I wrote a short story. I wrote a children's story. Okay, once. It was in the last letter, the first book that I published, and it was basically about a painter who he sees the woman of his dreams drive by in a car, and he can't find that woman back. So he's a mirror maker, and basically he drops a mirror, and it shatters, it breaks. And he uses all the pieces of the mirror and breaks it to make the face of the woman who he saw pass on the coach, because he's so infatuated. And of course, I'm using that his fingers are getting bloodied. So I'm putting in details that aren't particularly good for kids. But and then he goes bankrupt because he's in love and he's so infatuated that he's lost all capacity to work. And then as the moving company comes in, there's a man who says, oh, I know that woman. And he says, oh, I'll give you everything. I'll give you everything to tell me who this woman is. And then he says, well, meet me tonight and I'll show you who this woman is. So he takes this and he takes him. It's an Amsterdam-based story. So he goes in and they go into a really dark place. There's no one around. He walks, they enter a building, they walk to the end, and then he lifts his light up to see the face of the painting of the woman who he saw that was actually just facing in the coach that he thought was a woman, but it was actually just a painting.
Wow.
And then that's that.
That's brilliant.
And it was a metaphor for how we project onto things, and then we ruin our lives on the idea that something existed that we never actually did, of course. But I that was the one. But there was no whimsy in it. There's none of the little kid like, this is a, when after I wrote it, isn't this a great kid story? Yeah, a kid that's 16 years old,
I think it's a great grown-up.
That's a great young adult novel.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
I love it. I mean, when you shared it, we were both captivated.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. No, it's brilliant. I'm going to now develop this theory. This theory is like half a day old. But the premise would be, and I'm reading now a book on the psychological development of children, that where the scratch happens is where you end up being a writer. So there are people who write young adult books and are world famous, Harry Potter.
Yeah.
That would not work well as a picture book for 4-year-olds.
No. Clearly. There was one other item that I also wanted to go to, which is a separate item, when you talked about creativity. And there was a speech I went to in some hall. It wasn't a TED speech, but it was kind of similar in its structure. And the guy said, I'm going to give you 20 seconds to think about some way to become more efficient in your life. And so you sit there for 20 seconds and you're like, more efficient. And at the end, it's really hard to come up with an idea because it's such a broad context that you can't even begin to say, where do I start? And then he came back again. He says, I'm going to give you 20 seconds to think of an idea how to get more efficient on your way from home to the office. And then massive amounts of creativity began forming because all of a sudden you had a context in which you could then be creative. And it speaks a little bit to your point. And something that I've often found curious is that full creativity often leads nowhere because it doesn't have a context in which it can apply itself, because it's just can go in so many different directions. So,
yes. So first of all, researchers think that there's between 100 and 200 different kinds of creativity. So that it's not like monolithic. Secondly, I also find the same thing. If I give somebody, including myself, a sheet of paper and draw something, well, you write something, you're stymied, right?
Yeah.
What am I right about? That's like being outside the box. You're in the fucking universe. It's dark and cold.
Yeah.
But if I tell you also to write about a ball, and you don't want to write about a ball, it's not going to be good either.
Mm-hmm.
So the techniques that we developed are choice techniques. They're limited choice techniques. Take 4 items out of a list of 48, take 4 ways to change them out of a list of 48, and now you have 64 different permutations, 16 different permutations. Have fun. And the best ideas, of course, come out of fun. If it's a game, the results are always better.
Yeah, of course.
And, so I was speaking. I have a friend who's an anthropologist who studied the history of Jewish people and innovation, and we had this discussion like, is creativity an adult thing or a kid's thing? And the research is split. And I'm sitting having coffee with him. This is about a dozen years ago at HIT. And then the coin dropped. I say, okay, so what if creativity is a 2-step process? The second step is the step everybody teaches, which is the adult approach, which is called problem solving. You have a problem and you solve it in a novel way. That's really cool. But the first step, that's where most of the creativity lies. That's in coming up with the problem, coming up with the crazy idea, having the weird hypothesis. And I think that this is the childish step. And not only me, Norman Podhoretz said that creativity is when the child in you asks a completely outlandish question, and the adult inside you somehow takes it seriously enough to find an answer for it.
Nice. That I can certainly identify with.
So I see it. So I teach now creativity is a two-step process. The first step, which is coming up with crazy ideas. Now, if you're coming up with crazy ideas, then you don't do this at a company, unless it's a fun exercise. Because companies, if I make windows, I want you to come up with a window. If you're having fun, you might come up with a balloon and say, okay, let's now manufacture balloons. And that, as we say, is oy vey, right?
Yeah, or you would say that job isn't going to last very long.
Students at university and asking them to give themselves grades on the course.
Yeah, I love it. Well, we've gone over an hour 10, so we're certainly going to bring it because we cut these into podcasts, so there will be a podcast version of this coming out as well. We have Christina Hurst-Prager, who has been enjoying our shows this week, that's written and said, thank you for interviewing this wonderful, loving, and interesting man. I do hope he will have Peter on his podcast. Two very special men will meet. Yeah, Peter Koenig is someone that I certainly can send to you as a unique and individual. He has a thing that he's done for 20 or 30 years called The Money Work. And I use it slavishly in all the work and all the books I've written. So he's an incredibly fascinating and loving and beautiful, soft man. Nothing pretentious or anything about him.
I was delighted, but this was pure serendipity, because when I said Peter, it was just a name out of a basket, and here you're bringing me a real Peter.
Peter Koenig, that's his name. The man, the legend, the myth.
I'm game.
Thank you, Mel. It was really great being with you. Thank you for tolerating my questions about bacterial mouthwash.
Those were easy. The ones about the sex life were a little difficult.
You should have said, he said we can ask anything, and you said, yeah, sure. I'm going to have to give Bambos a scolding after this talk.
Okay. Let's just hope that my wife doesn't watch the show. Thank you very much, guys.
Love you, Mel.
Is there anything you want to say to your wife?
Yes.
To end it on a good note?
Yes. What's the song? Let's end on this. What is the song that actually reminds you of your wife? What is that song?
Right at this moment?
It might change. Is there one song you said, this is the song to my wife?
Right now?
Yeah.
I sing a Greek song.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye. That was fun.
Yeah. It feels like I was talking to someone in my country.
Yeah, I could see that. Yeah, they've certainly had there's a chemistry that you guys both had. I'm looking forward to some people from Cyprus coming on.
Stephanie.
Yeah. What do we have coming up, man? We have tomorrow, we've got Thomas Haida, who basically, he began really quite a well-known chaos pilots, which is quite well-known throughout the world, designing. And he's co-founder of that. So we're going to have him on. That's going to be an interesting talk. That came, I believe, also maybe through Gino, strangely enough. So Thomas will come on. We're going to talk to him about designing from chaos, which I think is going to be really fascinating.
And then Friday, Andy, we have your
we have JC Barnett. Coach. There he is. He's even sent us a big thumbs up on Friday. JC on Friday, he's got his own cult following. I posted that he's coming on the high school site, right? And I think we've already got 15 people that have marked or nuts. I'm on the show. So, I mean, we may even want to send out the link and let them come on to talk to him directly.
Are you sure?
Well, I would say the only thing I'd say is they have to say what he's meant to them. Nothing more.
You're going to make JC not want to be on the show.
Oh, he's going to cry for sure. We're going to get him to cry. So, yeah.
And I want you to wear your best hat, JC.
Yeah, JC's got to wear his best hat for that show. So, yeah, that's it for the rest of this.
Have a beautiful evening, and we're going to see you tomorrow on
A Wonderful Chaos.
Thanks A Wonderful Chaos, people.
Bye-bye.